our next talk in this sustainability seminar series. We call it Triple S, a flagship of KIRAN PATEL Center for Sustainable Development, this is a very recent addition to the IIT Gandhinagar. We are in third year. And recently we have been very active because maybe the positive side of this lockdown and pandemic. On this very day when we are starting all this again, and Abhijit was about to start, we already been curfew has been implemented and many things has already going on in Ahmedabad. And in that context, anything on sanitation or health related becomes very vital. Actually, microbial contamination, even if can always been able to make us sick within a couple of days, but not been given that much attention which COVID-19 has brought up. So before I give an introduction to the eminent speaker today, I have two announcements related to the KPCSD activities. One is that on 22nd, on Monday, we are going to organize one World Water Day 2021, where we will have two speakers. And this is a joint venture with International Association of Hydrogeologists, Indian National Chapter. So IAH, INC, and KPCSD jointly is going to organize this talk on Monday. And that will be from 3 p.m. So you can join and give your participate in that. But next Friday, actually this Friday, we wanted Abhijit to make it warm up. So the next Friday is our annual fair. We call it Sustainability Fair. And this is the third edition of that is going to happen next Friday. So in that we have the lot of a speaker whole day program. And I think that will be a very nice to see that how really a virtual conference may look like. And because there will be a poster display, there will be many, many virtual places to, and we bought a full package of a kind of booking of a hotel. Similarly, we have this virtual platform. So please lock down or register yourself and reserve those places. Then, without further ado, I would like to invite, I think, Professor Abhijit Mukherjee. I thought that may I dare my friend and Professor Abhijit, but yeah, let the friendship be far a little bit for now. But he is a double master's from one of the, University of Calcutta is known for the geology, and then University of Kentucky. From there, he did master. So MSc and MS, he removed C from MSc, and then he started, but he did PhD from the University of Texas at Austin. And his supervisor is one of the really meritorious hydrogeologists. I can vouch for that. And he did PhD from the University of Kentucky and postdoc from University of Texas. I am sorry for Abhijit. And then he worked at Alberta Geology Survey in Canada for 2 years, and then he moved to IIT Kharagpur. Now he is affiliated with two departments there. Of course, his parent department is Department of Geology and Geophysics, and another department he is affiliated with is the School of Environmental Science Engineering. He rendered his services, editorial services to the scientific report, ESNT Engineering. Of course, I am there with him. Applied Geochemistry, Journal of the Earth System Science, Hydrology, Journal of Hydrology, and Applied Geochemistry when they were very, very, so this is, he has already been associate editor for those very high reputed journals. Recently, of course, he has been always held very known and significant voice in the field of hydrogeologists. And that's why it has been followed that in 2014, at very young age, he got National Geoscience Award. by the President of India, and it is one of the the award with good money, I would say, because 300,000 rupees as a prize. Then Kharka Award, but after 6 years, he has hit the Kharka Award in 2020, and also the one of the most coveted award of the country, that is Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Prize. Of course, there is he is also with me as a fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry, FRSC, and then he is also top 50 leading scientist. He named under 50 years, and I think that by the 50 years he will be top 5. So yeah, he has been doing. He is also very spread like my research. He has started with the arsenic and all that stuff, but recently his AI-based work has given a lot of input to government in understanding countries' drinking water and food security problem. His artificial intelligence technique has been held highly, and perhaps that has also contributed to the many recognition that he got. There is a, and recently he is, I think yesterday or today, I don't know, he has been called for UN Assembly, some report to prepare. So his name is spreading, and he is one of the very, promising Indian star who is still, making name for the country, and now he is crossing the national boundaries. With this introduction, I would like to invite Abhijit for today's talk that is titled with Achieving Sustainable Development, Goal for Clean Water in India, Microbial Pollution of Groundwater and Socio-economy. And I work on microbes, so please. So in that case, you have almost 40 to 45 minutes, Abhijit, and then we will take up the question.
Thanks a lot, Manish. That was a much more elaborate, bio that I would do to myself. But thank you so much for inviting me for this session, and I'm really honored to be here. Manish and I know each other for almost like 10 years now, more than 10 years. When he was still working in Japan, and we have a common friend, senior friend, of course, Professor Ramanathan, who is the former dean of JNU. So we had a long association back there. So as Manish said, that I'm basically a geologist, hydrogeologist by training. However, I have also done some work in computation. I have a master's diploma in software engineering. And lately, I've been kind of using that in addition to all the other topics that I've been working with. So today, I'm representing IIT Kharagpur Department of Geology and Geophysics and the School of Environmental Science and Engineering. I'm also kind of representing this group called APA, which is Applied Policy Advisory in Hydrosciences. This is a group that I kind of convened about 3 years back. And the work that we are trying to do here is kind of, similar to what Manish and the friends does in the KIRAN PATEL school, where we don't keep ourselves limited in our disciplines, but we try to, involve in various other facets and other related topics, which can be possibly influential in, in putting input to national policy making. So this is one of the work that I'm going to present today. The title that I gave Manish and this one that I'm presenting, it's pretty much the same thing. So what we're trying to do here today is kind of talking about, the impacts of sanitation and development, of course, to the Sustainable Development Goal 2030. But also, it's not only that, but also to evaluate how much, sanitation development in India over the last, 3 decades, and more specifically, last 7 years, have made any difference for human life and society. So without further delay, I would like to start on my topic. Is that okay, Manish? Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. So I definitely need to, first acknowledge my collaborators, who includes my colleagues and students at IIT Kharagpur, my colleague in NASA, Noah, like from where we got a lot of data and support. And also my colleague IIT Kanpur, the economist who helped us a lot in understanding what we are looking at. So, it's a kind of a common slide, but I thought like I'll put it in just to set the context, to look at what are the groundwater issues in India. Now, in Gujarat, you are no unfamiliar to this, water scarcity. I mean, in Bengal, it's possibly a little unfamiliar, but in Gujarat, I'm sure like everybody knows about this. And it's not only just Gujarat or West Bengal, it is now spreading across the country. And water scarcity is something which is making a lot of difference in people's life. I know Vimal works a lot, Vimal Mishra, in your university. So, water scarcity is something really coming big that we should all be very much aware of. But at the same time, we do have water access in other parts of the country, almost simultaneously. So when we have, water scarcity problems going on in, let's say, Maharashtra, we are having water excess in Bihar, per se. Now, one of the things that people make it's kind of interpret it wrongly, that, flood or water scarcity is mostly caused by, precipitation or hydrometeorology, where it certainly does, absolutely does. But I think a more major role is played by groundwater, which is kind of, beyond the eyes. And so people don't recognize or give the due credit it should be getting. But actually groundwater causes the more rampant and rampaged water scarcity and water excess. Either way, if you have scarcity or excess, you are looking at drinking water security issues. And, as we are looking at trains moving with, water containers to different parts of the country, I think drinking water security is something that we don't need to introduce again. But however, just having drinking water security in terms of quantity is not enough. You also need to look at the quality aspects. Just drinking bad water, even if you have water, just drinking bad water for a prolonged period of time can get you sick. Sick like this. This is a photograph I took in the field. It's not from the web. People just drinking bad water, it's not a curse from the previous life or anything they have done bad. It is just that they are unfortunate to live in a place where they have arsenic problem in the groundwater. Groundwater is contaminated by arsenic. A lot of water is there, but it's polluted, which makes it a comprehensive scenario where both the quantity and the quality aspects of groundwater becomes of extreme important and for understanding for the sustainability of this country. And if we talk or not talk about climate change, that would be a crime. Again, I'm not a climate change scientist, so I cannot claim that I understand that. And I don't think many people does. However, one thing we do appreciate that if climate change is going to happen or is happening, water sector is one of the first sector that is getting affected. So any of the issues that I just talked about is not going to go slow, but is going to increase in future. So it becomes more important to integrate and understand all these processes, all these outcomes in a single thread. So as you know, like groundwater stress in India is increasing, and the 54% that is cited by the Water Resource Institute is possibly at the downside of it. It's more like 70% plus at the present times. I think the latest statistics I saw was 72%. And if you look at this stress in major parts of the country, mostly the western and the southern parts, but now also in the eastern parts, people are suffering from medium to high stress of water availability, groundwater availability. And if water is available or not available, 85% of that water is used for irrigation purpose. So, food production actually holds the key of the water resource management of this country, as said by one of my very close colleague and an eminent socio-economist of this country. So the groundwater more specifically, is something that is intricately related to the food production of this country. So together, all of this eventually comes to address the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I'm sure like many of you are aware of this. For those who don't, these 17 goals were defined in 2015 as a continuation of the Millennium Development Program of the United Nations. But the idea is that by 2030, irrespective of country, irrespective of economy, sociology, religion, caste, and creed, as one human, human race in this planet, we should be saying that we have achieved all these 17 goals. Okay, as one human group, there is no distinction, no discrimination in terms of affluence by religion, by nationality, or anything. So these 17 goals kind of holds above and beyond what we understand as in our daily cause or national causes. So these goals, honestly, is in a lot of way do influence our national policy making too. So at least, even if it's not declared, I can see that many of our national policies and missions that are taken for social good are actually related to these sustainable development goals, either directly or indirectly. And you can talk about the Manrega, you can talk about the Beti Padhao Beti Bachao, you can talk about like income for all, food security, name any. And number 6 of this goals is the clean water and sanitation. I'm sure like all of you can see that where I'm going at, the Swachh Bharat vision. The Swachh Bharat vision, which started in 2014, but had its precursor in various other forms in the previous few decades, were actually targeted to have the people of this country having access to clean water and sanitation. So goal number 6, SDG number 6, is exactly what I'm going to talk about today. However, saying that, it also makes sense that water is not something which is just goal number 6. If you look closely and more intricately, you will see all the other 16 goals plus SDG 6. All the other 16 goals do have water in some way or other, either directly or indirectly. So what we're trying to do, as one nation, one human, one creed, is to try to have access to clean water and sanitation. So as this slide from the United Nations website shows, that together we try to achieve this goal. Now, as you know, like water is something which all of us have some knowledge, we have some opinion about it. And I think many of us, or most of us, I would say, have an opinion of what needs to be done and what not needs to be done. However, unfortunately, when it comes in the way of using or not using water in certain ways, we fail to understand why we should do that. Why we would not take a bath in a water where in the upstream side somebody is defecating, or even further upstream a cattle is having a drink. It's one water, right? It's one flow of water. So we need to understand the differences. We need to understand the access, and absolutely we need to understand how that may be related to the nation building exercise. So water pollution, and more specifically groundwater pollution, is believed to be causing health issues to more than 100 million people of this country. Now 100 million is again a conservative estimate. If it is me, I would say like it's more than 300 million people in this country who are suffering somewhere or other on water related issues, water pollutions. Now when we talk about water pollutions can be of many types, primarily of geogenic nature, which is water polluted from some natural sources, or water polluted by human sources, anthropogenic pollution. Now both of them are controlled by some kind of geologic interventions, whether human sourced or natural. They are some way or other linked with the geology coming into play, and of course the activities that we do in our normal life. In today's talk, typically I talk about the geogenic pollution because that's, I have been working for the last about 20 years. But in today's talk, I'll be kind of taking a shift and we'll be talking about a more common, more practical, more obvious, but not visible human source pollution in this country. Defecation and sanitation borne pollution in India. Now, if you look at this slide, it says that about 2.6 billion people of this planet, which is almost like 40% of the human population, they still need access to improved sanitation facility. And a majority of that actually lives in Asia, and more specifically in South Asia. So it is said, and again, like my statistics might differ from some of the statistics given out by the administration, but I have seen in repeatedly in various international um, literature that a major parts of the people who still need to have access to clean water and sanitation are in South Asia and more specifically India. So water pollution because of sanitation, defecation, and hygiene issues are a true problem in India, although we try to take a look away from it. So what I'm going to talk today is based on some of our recent publications. I've listed two of them, but there are a few others which got published more recently, which are also kind of talking about the same thing. So it is a topic that I don't think many people have tried to address before I did, or and even if they didn't do it for the whole country for sure. So we're trying to talk about the sanitation and socio-economy impact on groundwater fecal pollution and associated human health. So to begin with, so we are looking at 17 lakh, um, more than 17 lakh groundwater fecal pollution data from government of India. So these 17 lakh data points were rescaled to 7,010 blocks present in this country. And what we're looking at is, um, you know, the nature of pollution changes or trend of changes from 2002 to 2017. So this data that is in the custody of the Jal Jeevan Mission, presently Jal Jeevan Mission, before that it was in the National Rural Drinking Water Mission and its predecessors. They are given by water pollution data every month from every point of these 70 lakh locations. Now I think we have been able to achieve 30 lakh data points. But again, 30 lakh data points is too much to show in one map. So we kind of rescaled it statistically, and I'm showing it for the 7,010 blocks of this country. So the color that you see here, red to blue, it indicates uh, increase in let me rephrase it. It shows in the betterment in the annual fecal coliform trend, if that's the best way to say this. So what 90% means is that these areas with blue color have become better in terms of fecal coliform concentration in the water itself, in the groundwater source drinking water. Whereas the red areas are areas where there has not been much improvement in terms of water quality, in terms of fecal coliform concentrations between 2002 and 2017. Now, to go for more in-depth study, I'm kind of picking into 4 locations, area A, B, C, D, which are marked in this map, which corresponds to some of these colors. So area A is highly improved, blue color. Area D is red color. And area B and C are the intermediate colors, green and yellow. So what we'll try to do is we'll go more in depth for these study locations where we have more data control and more field scale data that we have collected ourselves to kind of make a sense of the bigger picture. Now, when we talk about the fecal coliform pollution, the enteric diseases or the impact of fecal coliform in drinking water in terms of enteric diseases cannot stay back. So this map, it shows the distribution of enteric diseases in terms of annual acute diarrheal cases across India between 1990 and 2016. So what you are seeing again is the blue and the red color, which suggests that if it is blue, the water quality is better and there is lesser, well, let me rephrase, not necessarily water quality, but lesser numbers of acute diarrheal cases. Whereas red means more numbers of acute diarrheal cases. So you can say blue is betterment of health, red is your health is getting poorer. So, and again, the color shades might be looking very similar to the previous map that I showed you, but there are subtle differences, and I'll come to that in a minute. Now, in this country, it is believed that, together with what Corona has killed, together with what malaria, TB, road accidents, whatever other extraneous death can talk about. The death from drinking bad water in a short term, in terms of enteric diseases like cholera, dysentery, diarrhea, are far, far more. These are statistics that not my statistics, they are gotten from the Ministry of Health database. So these are not my numbers, these are Ministry of Health numbers, which I have just statistically plotted. So what it suggests that millions of people, specifically children below the age of 5, would die every year, but just by drinking bad water in this country. So I'm sure like we still need to go a long way to achieve the SDG 6. So here, I'm trying to show you a correlation between the fecal coliform anomaly trends and the acute diarrheal anomaly trends. Again, fecal coliform anomaly positive means concentration is decreasing. Acute diarrheal cases anomaly positive means health is getting better. So if you look at this map, there is an overall agreement of blue colors, blue to deep blue, which means that on an average, more than 0.8%, not 8%, sorry, R of 0.8 is a correlation of between fecal coliform concentration and the acute diarrheal cases. Or in other words, in areas where you have fecal coliform pollution, you have chances of acute diarrheal cases and vice versa. Now, what these lines on the left-hand side shows also are the entire region, the trends for the entire region, as well as the nonlinear trends for the entire region, as well as the trends for those 4, pilot scale areas, pilot scale study areas. And what we also have here are a blue bar showing the period of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan since 2014 and the publication of this paper, back in 2017-18. So literally it is showing that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was present in this country in some other form, maybe not that much prophesized, but it was still there. Government was still doing things in the right way, maybe not with that much zeal and enthusiasm, but still they were constructing sanitation structures. They were trying to make people's life better, giving them clean water and so on. Of course, with the change in the government, there is always a change in the zeal and the focus. And that's exactly what has happened with the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. And the blue line, the blue bar here shows the period where the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was, working till the paper was published. So the question now lies, now I'm observing that there is overall, over and out, there is a betterment of, sanitation-borne pollution decrease, and there is also a betterment of human health in terms of, getting better water, like more microbial pollution-free water. What is the driver? Well, the obvious answer is sanitation development. That's what people have been talking about, right? And the Clean India mission, the Swachh Bharat mission, is necessarily kind of publicizing that over the last few years, there has been so much construction going on, and toilets are getting built and so on. So there is already an acknowledgement of the facts that I'm talking about, and the government is working in the right direction. But how is it happening across the country? Now, when we talk about sanitation, I think all of us has a different understanding of what sanitation is. However, in terms of like experts, in terms of sanitation experts or wash specialists, there is a very specific definition of sanitation where it is actually not one method or not one work, but rather a series of things that needs to be done, which includes containment, emptying, transportation, treatment, to reuse and disposition. If this value chain is broken at any level, your sanitation is not happening. So by Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we are literally starting at point number 1, containment. And I'm sure the government has a very organized way of the rest 5 or 6 comments in a series. So, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is supposed to decrease sanitation by increasing proper sanitation. So this value chain needs to be preserved. Now, when I say proper sanitation values needs to be preserved, this reminds me of this map, which is the proportion of pollution by country using improved sanitation facilities. And if you can see, the brown color means the lowest numbers in the population, or in other words, the highest number of people don't have access to proper sanitation. And if you see, there are two major parts of the world. One is the Indian subcontinent, and the other one being middle to sub-Saharan Africa. So, there are two parts of this world where sanitation or achieving sanitation is still a pretty big deal. So we do have to work as a like combination of nations and like-minded people to achieve this. And among the sanitation techniques, like there are only few in the Indian subcontinent who would be using more modern techniques like sweat. Most of the people, including the modern ones that are getting beat, are what we call peat latrine. Now, peat latrine do have a concern. Many people have shown that peat latrine can be a point source pollution for a future time. It cannot be. I don't know. But people say that, peat latrine is not necessarily a very good option for long-term sanitation processes. So what I'm showing you now is the just give me 1 second. Yeah. Can I move this a little bit? Yeah. So the annual household sanitation structure development trend across the country. Again, the data was abstracted from the Jal Jeevan Mission, well, earlier Swachh Bharat Mission department through the Indian Secretary Parmeshwar Nayarji, who and I worked quite closely for certain times. And what it's showing is the way the sanitation development has happened in these 7,010 blocks across the country, excluding the extreme northern states of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. And what you see again here is between 1990 and 2017, the 27 years, there has been extensive development of sanitation structures. So most of the country is becoming blue in terms of inherently increasing sanitation structure development. And like the areas with red and yellow are areas which are not that improved. Now, saying that, you also have these areas for the nonlinear trends, and again, the blue bar on the right marks the Swachh Bharat Mission timelines from 2014, and you can see that there is, for many areas, there is a continuous upgradient move from the 1990s to 2017. And it seems like slowly enough that these sanitation structure development or encouragement of sanitation structure development is paving the way. So we ought to understand the correlation between the fecal coliform pollution and the sanitation development, as well as the sanitation development and the aquatorial cases. So what we are trying to understand, whether the sanitation development can have or have become a driver for the betterment of water quality and human health of India as large. And what we observe that in most cases, they are providing quite positive value sets. It's not extremely positive, but quite positive. They are mostly in the range of 60, 70%. So mostly green color, kind of color, some blue, of course. And this increase, this tells you that in areas where you have not got or have got sanitation development structure developed as a part of the Swachh Bharat Mission, water quality has become better. Now, sanitation development is something which is definitely dependent on the economy. And when we talk about economy, and economy is not my subject, so I had to absolutely depend on my friends in the economics discipline. And what I was told that economy is something which is like statistics. You can use it in the way you want to. And people use economy or indicators of economy in various ways. So the government would show in some way, political parties would show in some way, and you and I would show in some other way. So we needed to have some kind of proxy which is secular, which is not dependent on our judgment or goal. So we wanted to see whether economy did play some role in the sanitation development and in lieu or downslope into uh, uh, sanitation-borne pollution and human health. So what we did is we talked with NASA, and NASA have been collecting the nightlight data across the planet for the last about 26 years, and every day for the last 26 years. So their satellites are taking snapshots of the planet Earth as it's moving through several times a day, and taking the nightlight measurement in terms of lumens, how much lumens are enlightened in each of the pixel of the nightland map. And what you see here is a global map showing all the areas that are being lit. Of course, it's a mosaic of stitching of night lights from different parts of the country and the world, sorry. And we are specifically looking at India. And just like we have done the statistics for the areas with uh, less sanitation development to more sanitation development in present times, we did the similar things for economics, from less economic development to more economic development across the country. And you see, like, we again have gotten a pattern in terms of color. And the color is kind of matching with what we saw in the previous maps and sanitation. Or in other words, economy might be a big player in kind of improving the sanitation condition of the country, and doing so, it might have helped to make the water quality and the human health, the public health, better. So our study started showing that the economic growth and groundwater might be closely linked, even though it doesn't, seems to be a plausible connectivity. But it, at least in terms of the pollution context, it is actually showing some good indicators. And if you see the plots on the right-hand side, you will see the areas under the Swachh Bharat mission, at the time of Swachh Bharat mission, this economic development and sanitation, borne pollution decrease has kind of gone hand in hand. So things have gone better since the initiation of the Swachh Bharat mission. However, the efforts have started much earlier. So that tells us that the sanitation-borne pollution is just not economics, just not development. Because if that was the case, then the whole country would be blue. In the last 20 years or so, the economy of the whole country has changed. But that is not the case. We still have the red colors and a lot of yellows, which tells us that we are missing something and we need to address that. And we understood that there's something that we're missing is a human factor, human habits. And that is something that we also need to understand. So human habit and the cost of human behavior is something which is also possibly affecting the sanitation-borne pollution across the country. So now I re-emphasize on the 4 locations that I initially attributed to for pilot scale studies or field scale studies. I'm sorry, just take some water. And in these 4 locations, we are going to look at IHP or improper human practices. And the 3 strategies that we took, or the 3 indicators we took, were the population growth, the literacy as a percentage of the population, and sanitation usage. We saw that in areas where we have higher literacy rate or increase in literacy rate, we did see increase in sanitation, sorry, a decrease in sanitation-borne pollution and increase in betterment in human life. We specifically observed, and this is a bit anecdotal, we couldn't quantify it, areas where we have higher percentage of literacy rate among women and girl childs, this is even better. So literacy and going to school at least up to the the lower classes had been absolutely beneficial, even in terms of groundwater pollution, which I'm sure, like, if you don't think the intricate link, you would never think that they're connected. Why? Because if you have literacy and literate people in the household, they would have a less tendency to be biased by habits and what the religious and social norms. They would be taking views and activities more scientifically, more appropriately. And this is more true for girl childs because you know generally, and people might not agree with me, but in most of the cases, the girl child or the woman or the wife in the family acts as a pivotal role. They kind of, works as the axle of the wheel, where the wheel being the whole family. It kind of centers over the woman in the family. And if the woman in the family is educated, whether directly or indirectly, even in a country like India, where there is still a lot of social injustice, the women do influence the usage of sanitation or sanitation structures in the household. And this image, it's mostly from parts of North India, the North Indian Indus Ganges Brahmaputra aquifer areas. You see, like, there is an increase in population in most of these areas in the last 20 years. In many of these areas, there is also an increase of literacy. However, there are some areas which is strikingly high rates of non-literacy. And as I go through, I'll show you that there is a connection with the water quality too. Now, one other factors that have been quite controversial, and I suppose there are movies made on this, is the usage of the sanitation structure for at your household. Now, government can build the sanitation structure. They cannot force you to go inside and use it, right? So in many parts of the country, the sanitation structure is possibly the only constructed place in the Indian villages. So people have very interesting and innovative and improvised ways of using them. They are sometimes using them as cattle sheds. They are sometimes using them as storage for fodder or crops. They are sometimes even using them for places of worship. Now, again, being a scientist and being a natural scientist or a lab-based scientist, it is something extremely unique for us. It's kind of an eye-opener. I suppose social scientists are more often, exposed to this kind of observations. But as a natural scientist, I never thought that this can happen. But now, when we try to work with policy and science and human life, we see the connection. And that definitely helps me to improve my understanding of the science for this country. So perception, impractical design, accessibility, and prejudice, they all play, extremely important role in deciding, where you should go for the usage of your sanitation structure. So in a lot of parts of the country, the social acceptability is still something, and the perception is still something which is important in terms of the usage of sanitation structures. So I would specifically emphasize on area D of this map. You saw a lot of red, right? You'd be amazed to know, like, much of this red is actually in the vicinity of the NCR, the National Capital Region. And I was amazed when I first saw it, and I checked my numbers over and over and over again, trying to understand what might have been the reason. And then it just dawned on me that when we are talking about the vicinity of the National Capital Region, and if you have ever been able to go there, I have visited some of these places recently before the lockdown. There are skyscrapers coming out of cornfields. Paddy fields are being turned to, huge housing complexes. These are housing complexes which do not have a developed water availability structure. It do not have developed sewerage connectivities and many other things. There are structures, these are concrete structures, without having, what we call the indicators of development. And moreover, there is a huge population, mostly a migratory population, which would work as laborers in these constructions, would be living in extreme poverty and extreme social um, uh, injustice in the slums surrounding these high rises. And these people, these poor people, they don't know what to do. They don't have access to proper water or sanitation, and they are using whatever they can. Consequence, they are some of the people who are most affected by illiteracy, most affected by access to improper, access to proper sanitation and access to clean water. Result, these are some of the areas with most polluted groundwater in terms of microbes. Result, these are the areas where people mostly suffer from enteric diseases. There is also a counter view, and again, it doesn't mean that I subscribe to this, but the counter view is that at least in the initial phase of the Swachh Bharat mission, many of the non-government agencies were very concerned that is it that constructing a pit latrine, like I said earlier, is actually going to cause a debacle in near future. Why? Because you are constructing a pit latrine within your household, and that latrine might not have been constructed properly. Most likely is not. Uh, because as you know, in the economic structure and the social structure of India, so by the time the household person get the money assigned by the government, is possibly one third or half of what was assigned to. So of course the job is not done properly. Now what happens is when people go for defecation at outside fields, and again I'm not supporting it, but I'm just telling you the reality. People would be going quite far away from their home, so chances of polluting their own household drinking water sources are much less than when you are building this pit latrine within your household, couple of feet from your drinking water well, where a failure in the pit latrine system would actually, basically invite the pollution to a drinking water well. So a study like where we were involved in certain level, the study was done by the British Geological Survey, showed in parts of Bihar, this is a truth. It is actually happening that way. So anyway, so with all these indicators, we kind of developed this matrix, including fecal coliform, acute diarrheal cases, sanitation development, and nightlife, and we designated this color coding in terms of statistics with the green are areas with all the indicators being more toward the 90% or more, whereas the D areas which are more toward the underdeveloped scenarios. Now, the human development was still not considered, or the habits were not, still not considered. And we thought that we need to bring this in our calculation. So what we did next is we clustered these 4 locations where we did the pilot scale studies, A, B, C, D, and we collected the data from that in terms of human behavior, and we upscaled it for the whole country through geostatistical methods. And what we have now is a map, a complete map of India, excluding the northern states, where we have the class 4 areas, which are the original D areas, where you don't have good sanitation practices, you don't have good water quality, you don't have good health in terms of enteric health, because you do have high economic development. I mean, you may have good economic development, but that is not translating into social justice. Whereas in the area A, this is just the opposite. Economy, sanitation development, good water quality, and good health is prevailing simultaneously. So we were able to delineate this whole region, whole country in these clusters, and we have already communicated this to the ministry at various levels, and hopefully someday the work would be used for country's development. So this is kind of an integration of all the methods that we did. There are a lot of statistics and very advanced socio-economic methods, which not I'm all very expert on. Like of course it's a collaborative work. So we presented this work to the ministry wing on the sustainable development goals. Who are kind of tasked to develop the indicators of sustainable development goal of this country, and they said that they really appreciated the way we took or approached the problem, and possibly in future times they would also love to do something like this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this possibility of making this presentation to this group, and I'd be more than happy to take any question that you might have.